Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It's Thursday, May 21st, 2026. It's almost 2 o'clock and we are taking up another bill, S-278, which is an act relating to cannabis. And we will have folks from House Government Operations coming down as typically happens at the end of session. They're also looking at some bills. So in the meantime, we do have Sophie from Lunch Council to walk us through. So welcome, Sophie. Are we going to do the bill first and then the amendments, or how? I guess that makes the most sense. Yes.
So Sophie Sagani for the Office of Legislative Counsel, and I'm happy to do whatever.
I have not read the amendments. I think they're pretty new. So let's do the bill sort of high level. We don't need all the detail. I'm not sure why it's coming to us, but I guess we'll hear that from Ed at some point.
I can go through the bill and just flag the places where the amendments are. So then when you look at the amendments, you'll know where
Okay, that would be cool. Thank you.
And I'm assuming everyone has it in front of them, and then I will, okay. So section 1 on page 1, the first section deals with allowing single packages of cannabis to contain 200 milligrams of THC instead of 100 milligrams. This would not change the concentration per se. It would just mean that the packaging itself could contain more. And this is one of the amendments, is to strike this section out. So just give you a heads up on that. Section 2, 3, and 4 are amendments that follow on from section 1, although there is no amendment to delete those. But essentially, section 2 allows a retailer to provide 2 ounces of cannabis or the equivalent in cannabis products when selling it. Section 3 and section 4 deal with the criminal rules around possession. So it would allow somebody to possess, no more than 2 ounces of cannabis or more than 10 grams of hashish.
So 10 grams of hashish somewhere else, or is that the first time it shows up?
That's page 2, line 10 is.
But it doesn't show up anywhere else in the bill before then, but
No. Hashish. Okay. And then on section 4 on page 3, again, that's also taking into account the 2 ounce limit or 10 grams of hashish. Section 5 is an event permit pilot program. So this initially, when it came out of the Senate, was allowing 10 private event permits and 10 public event permits. House Government Operations reduced that down to 5 of each. And there is an amendment relating to this particular section of the bill. So it starts on bottom of page 3 and runs through to page 7. The amendment is just to clarify that if you do obtain an event permit, the location where you hold that event has to be in a municipality that has voted in support of retail cannabis.
Okay.
Section 6 on page 7, line 3 has been deleted. That was deleted in House Gov Ops. That dealt with delivery permits. So there was a pilot program for delivery permits as well. And then the next few amendments here, section 7, 8, 9, and 10 are really all around making adjustments for the fact that you have the delivery event permit pilot program. So again, they're just making amendments in some of the tax provisions on page 7, section 7, section 8 is just to include in holders of event permits are going to be subject to the same statutory requirements.
We also got rid of that integrated licensee. Is that not one of the things anymore?
We're going to come to that.
Yeah, but that's why it's crossed out.
Yes. That's a preview, foreshadowing. Page 9, section 10, Cannabis Control Board rules and report. And again, this is just taking into account the existence of the that event permit pilot program. Bottom of page 9, section 10A. This was an amendment that came up at the end of the, towards the end of the Senate process. And this provides a reduction of 50%. Generally, one of them is not quite 50%, but in the fees for outdoor cultivators. So you'll see that on page 10. The way this was initially proposed was that the reduction in the fees for outdoor cultivators would only take place with a contingency of $105,000 going into the Cannabis Regulation Fund to make up the difference. And the proposed effective date was January 1 of 2027. One of the amendments that is proposed is to move that to July 1 of 2027 and to remove the contingency. So I'm, again, just giving you a heads up on the reduction in the fees for outdoor cultivators. And again, if it's helpful for the committee, one of the thoughts behind that was that for outdoor cultivators, they have a very limited season as compared to the indoor cultivators. So the thought was to just reduce the fees accordingly. Top of page 11 is section 11 dealing with municipal authority. And this has a number of amendments in it, including that voters, if the municipal entity is not moving forward with an election, a vote on whether or not to allow retail cannabis establishments, there can be a petition by 5% of the voters to, have a vote on that. And then on page 12, again in section 11, there's a couple of other changes. In the middle of the page, lines 12 to 13, there are a couple of exceptions around nuisance ordinances. And what came out of the Senate was exempting tier 1 manufacturers and tier 1 cultivators from being subject to being regulated as public nuisances, along with the outdoor cultivators. In the House Government Operations, they took out the tier 1 cultivators and just left in the tier 1 manufacturers. Again, there is an amendment that would basically strip section 11 from the bill, except for those places where it's taking out the reference to integrated licenses.
So a tier 1 manufacturer is smaller?
Small, yeah, tier 1 is the smallest.
Okay.
And then at the top of page 13, the other thing that section 11 would do is essentially prevent municipalities from adopting ordinances or bylaws that effectively prohibit the operation of a cannabis establishment. So even if the voters have approved to opt in to allow retail cannabis, if the municipality then regulates it in such a way as to make it impossible, that would be precluded by what's the language that's at the top of page 13. But again, section 11, there's an amendment to just strip that out. Section 12 on the middle of page 13, this is to shift from the board paying the local license fees to municipalities instead of on a quarterly basis to an annual basis. And again, this was just sort of for administrative efficiency. I think just the cost of doing it quarterly was significant. So this was a request from the Cannabis Control Board. Section 13 at the bottom of page 13, but then over on page 14, this provides that employee licenses, instead of being annual at $50, would become biennial at $100. And again, the licenses would then be valid for 2 years. And there is a proposal on this to delay the implementation for 1 year till July of 2027. And that's to allow for IT at the board, to catch up. And then subsection 9 and on line 4 on page 14, this would give the board the ability to issue longer product registration. So right now, products are all registered with the board. And so if there are products that are low risk and shelf stable, the board could, take that into account. But again, it's a may, not requiring them to do that.
What is a product registration, like the shelf life?
I think for all the cannabis products that are sold, they have to be licensed or a general counsel for the board, but that's my understanding. But so right now, I think this is just allowing for the fact that there are some products that don't necessarily, they can last longer than 1 year. So.
Okay.
And then getting to the repeal of integrated licenses. So this is the middle of page 14. And then the next few sections all remove references to integrated licenses in the statute. Those no longer exist. I believe the last integrated license has, given up is not probably the right word, but anyway, they no longer exist. So these are all just conforming changes. So again, you had mentioned earlier, there was language removing integrated licenses. And so, so that's true for section 15, section 16, section 17 at the bottom of page 16. There's just one additional change there on the last line on page, line 20. By removing the integrated licenses, now there will be 6 types of licenses, not 7. Let's continue to page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20.
Yes, they lost on page 19, the integrated licenses, they had an annual fee of $100,000.
Right. All right, and so the next section is section 22 at the top of page 20. Oh, that's also a conforming one. Section 23 has been deleted by House Government Operations. That was a provision that would have expanded access to the cannabis fund for tier 1 cultivators, tier 1 manufacturers and businesses, the Cannabis Development Fund. And the testimony was that there's very little money left in that fund. There is no money going into the fund. And so expanding it seemed like a great idea. So section 23 of what was on the Senate version was deleted by House Government Operations.
So was there conversation to just delete the fund?
No, the fund's not deleted. The language was to allow more people to access the fund. It would have allowed tier 1 cultivators, tier 1 manufacturers.
If there's not very much money in there, they're not using it, why didn't they just delete the fund?
I believe there's still some money in there, but
It
the,
must be a special fund, so I could look at my special fund list report and maybe.
I believe so, yes. It's the Cannabis Development Fund. It's the one that was to help support social equity
Right, this
folks. Yeah. So section 24 on page 20, this is a change to the tax, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I will explain it as best I can. So what this is under a section that deals with the property. Let me find it, make sure I get the right language here. This is to do with the property tax credit. And this is just aligning language. So it's the definition of modified adjusted gross income, again, for the property tax credit. And this is just to make sure that folks, so right now there are, you can't deduct certain things at the federal level because you're dealing with cannabis. And this is really just making a change in the state provision. And I believe it's to make it consistent with corporate tax and individual tax. But again, the purpose of this language specifically statutorily is to do with the property tax credit. But if you need more information, my caller friend would be Kirby Keaton to come in and explain more on it. But again, these were changes that were requested by the Department of Taxes.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. And then section 25 and on page 21, line 5, again, this is allowing, this is just, again, providing some clarifying language around outdoor cultivation. And I think there was a concern around the existing language could have covered illicit operations. And so this was to make it clear that it's to cover, legally licensed cultivators of cannabis. The bottom of page 26 is another, page 21, section 26 at the bottom of the page, dealing with confidentiality of tax records, that crosses over to the top of page 22. Again, this is just adding in that the Cannabis Control Board can receive tax information for the purposes of enforcement. And again, these were all changes that I understand the Department of Taxes had requested.
I remember talking to people in Ways and Means that there were some tax things that everybody needed to help each other out, so it's fine.
Section 27 allows licensed cannabis cultivators to form a cannabis cultivator cooperative corporation. So that's what that does. And no change was made by House GovOps on that. And then section 27A and 27B, so again, the bottom of page 22 and then the next several pages. This is looking ahead to provide terms around if, as things loosen up at the federal level and there may be more ability to engage in interstate commerce around cannabis, this would allow the governor, again, there are a number of provisions in here, but would enable the governor to enter into a commercial cannabis compact with other states. So this is just sort of in anticipation of things changing at the federal level and positioning the state to be able to address that.
Right.
So nothing has changed at the federal level yet. Is that correct?
Right, and there's a number of conditions that you'll see in here.
What, do you know anything about what's contemplated that might change at the federal level?
No.
They started talking about, changing the classification from a class 1. There's,
Right,
so obviously nothing's going to happen. We're not going to.
It would be a while before anything happened.
it could be, but there's concern it could happen quickly.
Sometimes things happen quickly down here.
Right, and so the concern was just that Vermont not be left behind, but be in a position to join with other neighboring states that also have a regulated cannabis market.
But the governor makes that decision on doing that. This authorizes the governor to do it.
I have questions about the health issues because we're raising limits. Concentrations are up here.
This is not a concentration increase that was now.
I know we're changing concentration.
That's changing too. Wait till we get to all of that.
This bill does not change concentration.
It did at one point. You were absolutely correct, but there's now amendments.
Was our hospital health issues?
Yeah. I hear you. Okay, continue.
Okay, yeah, so just if it's helpful, page 27, section K in the middle there, line 10, that lists out what the governor would do. So again, just would work with the Cannabis Control Board, the Joint Fiscal Committee. And again, there would be consultation, recommendations. And then on page 28, line 4, it lists out what the contingencies are. And there's a number of different contingencies. So again, before the state would move or the governor would move forward, one of those contingencies would have to occur. So again, federal law allowing for the interstate transfer of cannabis or cannabis products, et cetera. The U.S. Department of Justice issuing an opinion or memorandum, the Attorney General of the state issuing a written opinion. So there are some examples there. And then at the bottom of the page, the governor and the board would notify the governor and the General Assembly if any of those events were to occur. All right. Section 28, page 29, line 11 was deleted. That was language that did include an appropriation. It was deleted by Senate Appropriations. So there's no appropriation in this bill.
Oh, it came to us though. That was the deleted section 28, is it?
Yes.
Do you know how much was in there, just out of curiosity?
So it would have transferred $1 million from the general fund to the Cannabis Business Development Fund. So that was the one that's running low. And then an appropriation of 1.68 million to the LAOB.
Okay.
And then section 29 has the repeals in. So again, language around the integrated license. Subsection B, line 15, that is a section that is in direct conflict with the subsequent section. This is to do with the Cannabis Control Board now will have some authority over hemp. So that's repealing that. And then subsection C, that is the cannabis event pilot program. So again, it's anticipated being for 2 years right now. So that would be repealed on July 1 of 2028. And then at the bottom of the page, turning over onto the next page is a couple of sections dealing with rental agreements. So this was some language that was added essentially to allow individuals in rented accommodation to be able to consume or possess and consume cannabis or cannabis products in their rental premises, but not those that involve lighted cannabis or cannabis products intended for inhalation. So the goal primarily is more like edibles and drinks and things like that.
It's like a no smoking, it's applying the no smoking ban typical to
Essentially, yeah.
cannabis as well.
And then there's just a corresponding change in section 31 to address that same issue. And then finally, on page 31, effective dates. So generally, things would be taking effect July 1, 2026, but there are some exceptions. So one is on the tax piece that's in section 24. Again, this would allow it to sort of to look back, to take into account for tax returns for 2020, well, starting calendar year 2025. Section 10A, again, this was the one that was reducing the outdoor cultivator fees contingent on the General Assembly transferring $105,000 to the Cannabis Regulation Fund. And there is an amendment on that. And the House Government Operations had changed the date to January 1, 2027 on that. Again, there's an amendment that makes a further change. And then subsection D, there's section 13. That was to do with the change in the license for employees. Pushing that out a year. So that is the bill as amended by House Government Operations.
You say that section C came out?
No, section C, they just changed the date. So originally it was going to take effect right away, and that just delays that switch from annual to biennial for a year.
Oh, yes, the reduction in fee rate. Okay. Let's go over the, Mike, sorry.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 31. Line 9, section 10A. So help me understand. So we're putting in $105,000 in general fund money into this?
That did
Where
not
does that money
happen.
come from?
The 105, that did not happen. So that was a contingency that if the General Assembly were to transfer that money, then that reduction in the outdoor cultivator fees would happen. But my understanding is that is not in the budget. So
it's
that
not.
contingency is not going to happen.
I feel like I've seen this before. So.
Not even as a contingency. Budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, there is an amendment on this specific piece. If you want me to
So we
switch.
should go to the amendments.
Yes.
Unless you have a question on anything else, or we can go back to the other subject. Did you have a question on that?
So the transfer on the transfer, there was a transfer, a large transfer that was going to happen as part of this language of amendment.
Well, there was
Business
this,
transfer, so.
there was originally an appropriation that was taken out by Senate Appropriations. That was section 28. And then this was a contingency, like if we cut the outdoor cultivator fee,
Yeah.
can we make that up with by transferring $105,000 into the fund? But the contingency hasn't happened, so, or isn't going to happen as
Right,
much.
which means that the fees don't get reduced.
Right.
It's, there are other ways because we fund the Cannabis Control Board anyway from the general fund. So even if the fees, cultivator fees get reduced, we would be maybe putting more in, but we wouldn't have to specifically appropriate an exact amount. So,
I think the concern was just that if you reduce the fees, it's less revenue into the board.
right.
And that gap between revenues
So we all,
received
we've been
and.
funding of the general fund, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's sort of unnecessary to say that because we fund we fund the board through general fund.
Right.
Anyway. So it's redundant.
Would it be helpful to put the amendments on the?
Sure, and tell us which one you're doing, because there's two different ones. So I don't care what order, you must, unless there's specific order you.
Move this out of the way. So the first one I have is the one Representative Byron.
Okay.
So the first instance of amendment, again, going back to the bill, this would remove the language in section 1 that increases the amount of milligrams of THC that can be in a single package of a cannabis product from 100 to 200 milligrams. So this would delete that.
So we stay at 100.
Right.
Okay.
Section 11, this was the municipal ones with those changes, like voters could petition to have a vote on whether or not to opt in, and in terms of regulation. So this essentially would delete all the changes except for those changes that reference the integrated license. So this is just to make sure that if we take out references to the integrated license in other sections of the statute, we also are taking them out of section 11 and we don't lose those conforming amendments.
So it sort of eliminated the old section 11, whatever was in the bill.
Right.
Section 11, and just went back to the old language with removing the integrated.
Exactly.
Okay.
The
Any question on me?
The possession limits, they didn't go up. Possession limits stayed the same.
Sorry, that's
Possession limits.
right. So it doesn't delete those sections. So those would increase. Those changes are still in the bill.
Which
In
change?
sections 2, in terms of sale, section 3 and section 4, which deal with cannabis possession and
So
cultivation.
that's the 1 to 2 ounces.
10 grams.
Right. So those 4 sections sort of go together, but this amendment just removes section 1.
And section 1 was the part with the going from 100 to 200 milligrams of THC. So we
Right.
reduce that. They can carry around more with them
Buy more at a time.
In more package.
in more package, in more package. Okay.
All right. So third is adding a new section 12A. And what this does is it provides that the Cannabis Control Board can enforce a final administrative penalty. Right now, apparently, they can issue an administrative penalty, but they can't actually enforce it. And so this was just to sort of close that loop to enable them to actually enforce a final administrative penalty in Superior Court. And then fourth, again, this just goes back to what we were just talking about. This is that reduction. Section 10A is that reduction on the outdoor cultivator fees. So what this does is essentially it takes out any language around contingency and just says that that reduction in the outdoor cultivator fees will take effect July 1 of 2027.
But it's still contingent on the 105?
So now there's,
Regardless.
right, now there's no
That's good.
contingency.
Takes out the 105. Okay, good. Okay, so that's one of the amendments. And then let's look at the other amendment.
And then the last amendment, this is to do with the pilot program for the event permits. And what this does is just add in, I can highlight it here. It just adds in this language, this sentence, that an event permit shall be issued only for events being held at locations within a municipality that has voted affirmatively to permit the operation of cannabis retail establishments. Before, the event permits weren't limited that way, so technically somebody could schedule an event in a municipality that had not voted to approve
Okay,
the operation.
and did it already have the single event not to exceed 4 hours?
Yeah, all of the rest of that is in the current version of the House.
I'm a little concerned about a 24-hour cannabis event.
Right.
When,
Yeah, we saw this last year. It was the pot festival.
was something slightly larger, I think, last year.
It had all kinds of restrictions. It had to be indoors, there had to be security, there had to be no selling of anything. It was all. I remember back in the 70s going to one of those. At the University of Maryland
Maybe the
Field House.
60s.
Ah,
There was police outside, but there was security inside that didn't mingle.
yeah.
It was indoors, it was regulated,
Yeah.
it had, and as soon as Jill lighted, the light went on and they started singing, she started singing, the place lit up. Now, this was for people who are cultivating, my article last year, this was for people who were small cultivators who needed a place to be able to show their wares and have people. There wasn't supposed to be any selling. I don't remember. We didn't buy any at the University of Maryland, but I'm sure there were people who did. I mean, the whole thing is like, I don't think this is appropriate. I mean, I know what they're trying to do. It's trying to get small cultivators to have access to something. If they say 12 hours, that's probably too long.
Well, 24 hours is a little surprising to me.
24 hours, yeah. Anyway, I don't like that piece.
Okay, I hear you. Wayne?
And my concern is, I took a look, apparently testimony from the health department.
That's the-
Well, maybe we have, report from the committee, so those are not questions about the draft. Do you want to join us? And you're welcome to just stay there,
Okay.
Sophie, and just, we have another chair we can pull up. Welcome, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I'm Representative Lucy Boyden, coming to you from House Government Operations and Military Affairs. I just want to start out with that the bill came out of committee on a 9-0 vote, and the amendments that you just reviewed from Sophie, we took straw polls on. The Nugent amendment was 11-0, and the Byron amendment was 10-1.
Okay, thank you.
And in relation to your question, we took a lot of really varied testimony. We had a joint public hearing with Senate Economic Development, excuse me. And we, in that event and just in our committee room itself, we heard from folks within the industry, the CCP, folks connected to public health initiatives, the Department of Health as well. And there were a lot more asked from the industry, and where we kind of compromised and came to a place was a place that was generally supportive by the folks within our public health initiatives.
My concern is, I mean, we're hearing bills on hospitals and the problems we have in our hospitals and mental health issues, the clogging up of our emergency room with people with mental health issues, right? And according to what this says, now, did you hear any testimony about the tracking that the health department has in terms of depression disorder or mental health issues that are showing up in the hospitals?
We did hear testimony from them, and we also heard testimony in relation to our youth and their usage, and also mental health as well. It's hard to create a direct correlation, so they viewed it more as just a relation and not like cause and effect. Makes sense.
So my concern is that we keep increasing THC levels, increasing how much people can have at a time, how much they use, regulating that. I mean, I was fine I've been around for a long time, obviously. So I was in those fields back in the 60s when everybody was doing whatever they were doing. And when you legalize, pot to start with, I tolerated all those folks just fine, although I always hated smoking of any kind, so I didn't like it. But I was always tolerant. But now we're layering on more and more health effects that are costing us money and threatening the ability of people in our emergency rooms to actually get critical care when someone's in there with a self-created mental health issue. And where do we stop? It's one thing to have some recreation, but also something else when that recreation causes real world impacts upon people's lives. So I have a serious concern with that. Don't know what to think, but I also just have a rudimentary. Once upon a time, I was asked to do something with law enforcement that I knew was illegal, and I said no, I couldn't, and I got pushback, and I said, well, can you tell me all the laws that are all right for me to break? I didn't get any response back on that. So it does bother me that we have federal laws that we're willing to break, and actually the state of Vermont's trafficking in those things. So I'm asking, well, what other laws might I be able to break that I don't want to abide by? That's enough.
Okay, that's your statement. Go
And I mentioned
ahead.
what I was saying, I understand your concerns, and we have proposed in the bylaw amendment to strike out section 1, as Sophie mentioned, relating to the increase in how much of an item is in a package. I think the committee could consider amending sections 2 through 4, which relate to possession. But ultimately, we had a lot of these conversations in committee as well of where when you go and buy alcohol, you can buy it in a 4-pack, a 6-pack, 24-pack. And I could leave with multiple 12-packs or so. So I don't know. And then we have legalized the cannabis market, and we are looking to tweak it as times adjust. And we heard some testimony that there's preference from folks who travel from far away, and they would like to buy of more amounts.
Go ahead, Tom.
Did I hear you say that you're striking out the amounts, like, so if the daily amounts from, it's at 100 milligrams now, and the original bill proposed 200 milligrams, and that's being struck, so we're just keeping the same 100 milligram?
Yeah, in the bill right now, as it stands coming over from the Senate, it does propose to increase from 100 to 200 milligrams per package. Coming to you in the Byron amendment, it proposes to strike out that language in section 1. But there's still
Why is
the, just from what we're hearing from other folks within the building, and it's something that we.
From the manufacturer's perspective, though, they were trying to equalize the amount, at least that's, I mean, Massachusetts, it's far above 100 milligrams, so my reading of some of the literature that I received is that they feel like they're at an economic disadvantage, especially those closest to the border, just like we hear for alcohol or anything else. So that's not, if the Byron amendment passes, then that's gonna be status quo.
Yes, and ultimately, Vermont is more strict with our cannabis laws. So it is more difficult for businesses along the borders, bordering New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire.
Except they're not supposed to cross state lines to purchase things, so that should, in theory, have no effect
No,
whatsoever.
that's not true. We were allowed to go anywhere to buy marijuana, to buy cannabis. If I'm in Massachusetts, I can buy.
You're not supposed to drive across.
You're not supposed
state
to
line.
traffic it across. You're not supposed to buy it and then resell it. But at any rate, it's just, okay, that's fine. That's, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't know if I support that. Can you explain from the committee's perspective what 24 hours permit means?
Yeah, we didn't discuss that much. We kind of looked to some of the permits within our alcohol laws. I wouldn't expect a 24-hour event, but we do have it here.
We have 24-hour alcohol events?
Yes, well, the permits are given for
Oh.
festivals.
Right,
So the festival can go from
Over a couple of days.
noon to
Right.
noon the
Right.
next day. It's not likely that there's going to be ragers going on from late at night through the morning
Yeah.
hours, but the language struck me as being similar to what was passed when we started doing brew festivals, which are now huge business.
Right.
But they're not about drinking. Well, I don't know. We took away, apparently in 921, we took away when things can be served. So you can buy alcohol apparently at any time of day now, once the bill's a law. So
No, that's not correct.
what did you take away?
Of when to-go cocktails can be served.
Okay.
For each license type, it still outlines the times of.
Okay, good. All right. It's
Yeah.
hard to read it out of context. Yes. But that's what the 24 hours strikes me, is that it's not,
Okay.
it's meant to be a day, 24-hour period, but not not
Yeah,
like I said, not like a 24-hour film festival
like
where
a
you have to
smoke
make a film in
fest for
200, you know.
24 hours.
Exactly. No, I'm disappointed. I have folks in my town that are they're in the business. And so they're just interested in the notion of being able to be more competitive with the surrounding states.
I'm sorry, you said they were very what?
They're very concerned that if the amounts are not competitive with other states, that it affects. I mean, we hear this conversation with alcohol, which is,
Thank you, I just couldn't hear you.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna be, I don't know if I'm gonna support this amendment for that reason alone, but I understand that it was 11-0, but it's.
we've had a lot of varying opinions throughout the building, and whenever it comes to cannabis, and the person to my left was on the appropriations when it got voted out, it was the final part, and I believe it was a 6-5 vote in the appropriations committee at that time, and I think it continues to have mixed, I think there's, every time a bill comes out, people say, well, I like that part, but I can't live with this part, and then the next person says something completely different, so there's not, it's like education, there's not unanimity on which parts people like and which parts people don't like, and that's why this has been such a struggle for House Gov Ops and for every committee that deals with it, because there's stuff you like that I really would just as soon not see perhaps, and the same with what Lynn has talked about, so it is what it is. And I know you're all trying to do what you can to promote the industry, at the same time safely regulate it and make sure we can get the votes to get something out.
And to not have any federal support.
Right, yeah, exactly. Oh, that, yes. Okay, what else, Lucy?
This chart from the CCB, I don't know if you all have this, but it might be helpful as well. Gabe, I think you might have this.
We may have seen that before
Okay.
on sales over the years or something.
No, this compares Vermont and all New England states, including New Jersey, on what each state does relating to potency, transaction limits, events, social consumption, taxation, and advertising. This was originally some pepper.
You have an electronic copy that you can share.
I think Gabe might from the CCB. This was from James Pepper.
That would be good information to have.
It's definitely.
It's on our committee website somewhere. Sorry.
Another question, Wayne?
No, it's a comment. I said, I don't like any of it, but I'm willing to be liberal on some of it.
Well, I don't know that we're gonna have amendments of our own at this point. I mean, there's nothing from an appropriation standpoint that needs to be amended.
Yeah, and I think
Because they took care of the 105, or I'd be doing something about that. And actually, I feel like I've seen this before. Did we go over this before, this fiscal note? I don't know why I've seen it. Maybe I saw it somewhere else, but
330.
probably that was it, Tom. The money was related to the reducing of the fees, and I'm just looking at the fiscal note. Ted Barnett, who is in Senate Finance now, where he has to sit in the chair and talk about stuff, so that I'm running the fiscal note as best I can. We'll all go through it. So I think that was the big thing, was the reduction in fees, and we already heard that it was going to be contingent upon the general fund transfer of $105,000. That's been removed. There is no general fund transfer. There is no money from our perspective that is in this, so this isn't going to happen. I think that's like this.
Mhm.
And it went to Ways and Means also?
Yes, I was not present for their conversations.
Okay, yeah, because of the fee changes, it went to Ways and Means.
They altered it all, excuse me, I'm sorry. Did Ways and Means here?
No, I don't believe
No,
so.
they-
Yeah, the only alterations are these draft amendments.
Yes.
And they're going to have to see those amendments too, are they not?
It was,
I have
yes,
checked on the Ways and Means website.
it was my understanding that if you all were favorable, these amendments would come from your committee, but now that it's man of mouth, that doesn't quite make sense process wise. Yeah, that was what I was told from my chair, but I don't think that makes sense.
278, let's see, I saw it. They saw something. Last Friday, I'm just trying to think, Friday, May 15th. That was before these amendments?
We talked about these amendments yesterday.
Okay. They haven't got, so Ways and Means, so it'll go to Ways and Means, I'm guessing at some point.
I'm a therapist assistant.
Yes, Autumn is doing double and triple duty at the moment.
Well, that's actually what.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't say enough.
Well, your taxes out of your paycheck this week, you're gonna be off.
I would add that, House Ways and Means did discuss the, addition of section 12A that's in the amendment. Because to deal with the enforcement provision, administrative enforcement, that was discussed in front of House Ways and Means.
Okay. Because there were fees about that.
It was more just it just was raised by the CCB
Okay.
at that meeting. So
Okay.
they were supportive of that, but,
So I think what we have to do, go ahead, Mike.
I'm trying to figure out what we're gonna be voting on then.
I was just about to say that. I believe we need to vote on each of these. So we have had this bill in our possession. But the amendments have just come, so we would have to do, I believe, straw polls on these two amendments. Straw poll? Sophie? No?
Well, once again, I think we've got,
It counts either way. Yeah. We're gonna do we're gonna vote on each of the amendments, and then we're gonna vote on the bill. And then we'll figure out how we put all the pieces together, but we're gonna vote on all three things. But recognizing that obviously the amendments affect.
Well, those are just floor amendments, right?
Are these gonna be
We're
floor
not
amendments?
attaching them to our.
No, we're not
Anything we're
attaching them.
doing.
So these will be straw poll because they'll be floor amendments. And then we have the bill in our possession, so.
We're just voting on that.
Yeah, but we can vote on these two first, right, you think? Okay.
I don't, the order doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, let's do the amendments. You're right, because, oh, gosh. This is like 190 was.
once again,
We're not gonna do an appropriations
We're
amendment.
not gonna roll them out.
No, we are not rolling them in this case. We'll just do straw
That's an
polls.
appropriate base for.
Marty! There you go.
Duh.
Haven't lost our sense of
It's a
humor.
joint agreement.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna. Sorry, we're already 10 minutes into the next bill that we haven't gotten to. Mike and then
Do
Lynn.
you want a motion?
Yeah, actually, I think what we need to do is vote on the bill, because that's what we have in our possession.
Motion
Then
to
we'll do
approve the
straw
bill
polls.
as presented.
Okay, here comes Ted. We're voting already, Ted. You can sit here. I just said that there was 105,000 and we're not doing it.
Oh, fiscal year 28.
Right, and then we get to decide then.
Yes, and there's some very minimal things from event permits. There's some minimal revenue in 2 fiscal years while it's in place.
Okay. I think that's not impacting our feelings about whether we're gonna vote for the bill, so thank you. Okay, so we have a motion from Mike. Is there a second? This is just on the bill. And then we'll do the. Yeah,
Lucy,
Lynn.
could you tell us again? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The vote in the committee on the full bill.
On the full bill, it was 9-0.
920. And we can tell you what the votes were on the other amendments when we get to those again. Lynn?
Discussion.
Yes.
Okay. In reading the fiscal note,
Yep.
this event, this section 5 is much more extensive than I think what we had last year. It includes, according to this, that was mostly for small growers who would not have the retail access for their small growing cultivated. It now includes cultivators, retailers, other licensees. Got a bunch of things in here about they are going to allow for section B3 of that section, a product sale plan that describes quantities and types of cannabis and cannabis products that will be offered for sale, how it will be transported, monitored, secured, displayed. So last year, they did not allow the sale of anything other than maybe plants. You could smoke it and you could try it. You know, I know this is sort of comparable to like a beer garden type, you know, Oktoberfest, but I don't think this is appropriate.
Dave?
Because, not appropriate because, here's what I'm trying to get at. I'm about to vote on something. I'm trying to focus on I'm part of the Appropriations Committee.
Yes, I'm giving you my personal.
But does any of this impact the appropriations of the state? And in my mind, I'm thinking if it doesn't, I'll vote for it. What other grounds would I not have?
In appropriations.
Yeah,
And then on the floor, you do something else, you're saying, one might do something else.
well, they could, I guess, but here I feel like our duty is the appropriations. And if there's no appropriations, no impact, to be against it is really because you don't like cannabis.
That's
I shouldn't say that because I don't want to assume what people are thinking, but
Right.
for myself,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
Does
so
that
it,
make any
and that
sense?
does happen, that sometimes people vote in the affirmative to get something out of a committee and onto the floor, and that's where the debate about the actual policy happens. So that's a way to think about it. I can't tell you all how to think about this. But you're raising a good point, David, I appreciate your point.
Yes.
And I also understand the permit issue. I
Yes.
appreciate that a lot.
Yes.
Yes,
And the
Go ahead.
nexus for me to the money is that if we're spending a lot of extra money with people that are having problems, then that counts to money that's coming out of it sooner or later, even if we don't see it on the line right now.
I didn't see that data yet. Is there data somewhere that says that, Wayne?
Yes, they took testimony in committee, and I did a little AI thing there, and
Oh,
it's the numbers, right? There 5 times more psychotic episodes and 1.6 times more
Like there is with alcohol.
data. It's Vermont data collected by our hospitals.
okay. I think we're gonna vote, and then we'll do the 2 amendments. And then we'll be done with this bill, and we're already running late for the next bill, so. Which will be our last bill. Let's take the roll, please.
Representative Blumenle,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson,
No,
Feltes,
No,
Representative Kaczynska,
No.
Representative LaRoche, Representative Rowicki,
Yes.
Representative Nigro,
Yes.
Representative Squirrel, yes, Representative Stevens.
Yes.
Representative Yakuboni,
Yes,
Representative Shy,
Yes.
7-4-0.
Okay. Now we have the amendments. I'm gonna go by date. First amendment was the Nugent amendment, that's the permit one. With other specifics that came out of GovOps 11-0. Is there a motion to move to
So
Tom? Second. Thank you, Tiff. Any further discussion on the permits? Feel like we've kind of had that discussion. So clerk is ready. This is a straw poll, officially a straw poll, but it's already.
Representative Blumenle,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson,
no,
Representative Feltes,
yes,
Representative Kaczynska,
No.
Representative LaRoche,
No.
Representative Rowicki,
Yes.
Nigro,
Yes.
Squirrel, yes, Representative Stevens,
Yes.
Representative Yakuboni,
yes.
and Shy.
Yes.
So it's 8-3-0.
Okay, thank you. And then the last one is the Byron amendment. Which deleted the 200 milligrams, so it stays at the 100 milligrams. That's kind of the biggest one for me. Did the stuff with the integrated retailer and allowed the enforcement ability and delayed the spending of the money. So that's that. Is there a motion to support the Byron amendment? Wayne and Tim. Okay. I think we've discussed this one too. So when the clerk's ready, please call the roll.
Representative Blumenle,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson,
no,
Representative Feltes.
No.
Representative Kaczynska,
No.
Representative LaRoche,
Yes.
Representative Rowicki,
Yes.
Representative Nigro,
Yes.
Representative Squirrel, yes, Representative Stevens,
Nope.
Representative Yakuboni,
No,
no.
No.
Representative Shy,
Yes.
6-5.
Okay. We are all over the map on this one, but you know what? We represent people. people all over the map and this body. So, Rep. Nigro will be the reporter of the bill. It will not be on the floor as long as it's not on the floor tomorrow. Thank you for coming down, Lucy. Sophie, thank you for coming. Ted, we appreciate you jumping back and forth.
I did my best.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
I was-
So we have to go right into the next bill. Thanks for your patience, Bradley. You have to head out. Maybe else stay. Told me he's having.
For SAG.
This is ag. We asked for a couple of amendments. Do we have the amendments?
I need to go grab it, what's Bradley?
Okay, let Bradley and then go, or please, I think if you look at our web page. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. We knew there was going to be one. We had a request from the administration to put an amendment in that related to HCC, which we passed at the very beginning of the year, which was the Farm and Forest Recovery Fund, whatever it was called. We didn't bring Essex and no money in it, and they asked to have some specific language put in about that fund. There's no money in it, but we have the bill, so we're putting it. And then we realized in the budget and in another bill, I'm going to get this messed up, but the body has removed at the, again, administration's request, the fees for the medium and large farms. And that the budget went through that way with the taking them out. And then we were going to backfill the general fund. However, we didn't put in the language in this bill that said that we're repealing those fees. And if we don't repeal the fees, Agency of Ag has to charge the fees, and they get the $243,000 that we put in to backfill the fees that they would now be getting. So the point is to take that out. So they get the money once, not twice, and everybody's happy. That's the theory. Do I have that sort of right? So that's what we're talking about today. Bradley, welcome.
Thank you. Bradley Shulman, Office of Legislative Counsel, and that is the amendment. I will.
I didn't explain what we were doing tonight. Yeah.
So there's two instances of amendment. The first instance of amendment amends S60. And this is a conforming change to make sure earlier in S60, it says the secretary, after conferring with the review board, will make decisions about this fund. And so this is some conforming language just to clarify that it's the secretary shall make the final award determination. The governor thought that it was unclear and asked for this clarification, and that's what that does. The second instance of amendment restores the large and medium farm permit fee removals. They were in the bill to begin with.
Make this stuff up.
Make it entertaining.
Just quickly, just so if I'm understanding this correctly, it was recommended that this happened from the administration and from the agency. We agreed with it. It showed up in our budget, but this is the language that allows that to happen.
Right, the language part got left out.
To waive the 231,000
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
And that is exactly right. So this is the statute where they live in Title VI. The first one is for large farms, and then also in Title VI for medium farms. The large farm permit is $2,500 per farm. The medium farm permit is $1,500. And as you know, the line item for this is about $230,000.
Right, so this is.
So it says not be required to pay because we've eliminated the fees.
That's exactly right.
Restore the repeal. So this bill came out of, before all the amendments came out of House Ag on a unanimous vote of 800. It came out of Ways and Means on 902. Just going back to look at it, the fiscal note was, I believe, all about, there's some stuff about hemp and CAFOs, and a working group related to CAFOs. This is sort of coming back. It's like been 2 days and I forget everything. It's been 2 days. Concentrated animal feeding operations. They had to transfer the program to ANR from Agency of Ag because the EPA or somebody in the world
The water.
said that they, yeah, because of water quality and stuff, that it really needed to be overseen by ANR, and we gave $850,000 a couple of years ago to get that started. So it's continuing the problem. So it's in a better place all the way around. And then this was also the transition of hemp to the Cannabis Control Board. We spent a lot of time talking about that when that was a lot of the bill as well, which everybody had talked about and agreed to before it showed up in the bill.
I mean, we'll actually see something happen with hemp.
Hemp was really big and then it didn't.
Well, it was big for oils and not, I mean, when we legalized hemp, also against federal law at the time. I think there was, I don't remember talking about oil, although I'm sure some people knew about it, but it was about textiles.
Right.
Yes.
You know, that's what, that's what the dream was. It's like,
Yeah.
or that's not what the dream was, but that's what, it's like, oh, good, we'll go back to making rope that lasts.
Right.
Whatever, but that hasn't happened yet, and I don't know if the cannabis board would increase that, but anyway, that's.
Okay. So we remembering what the bill was at this point?
Yes.
Okay. And does everybody understand the amendments?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions about any of this at this point?
So,
Is there a motion to approve the appropriations amendment? Tom, John? These are not straw polls. We have it all in our possession. We own it. All right. When the clerk is ready,
So
well, this is on the amendment
Yeah.
first. Okay.
All set?
Yeah.
Representative Blumley,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson,
Yes.
Representative Feltus,
Yes.
Representative Kaczynski,
yes.
Representative Roche,
Yes.
Representative Rowicki, Representative Nigro,
Yes.
Representative Squirrel, yes, Representative Stevens,
Yes.
Representative Yakavoni.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Lynn, what was your vote?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so it's 10-0.
Great. Okay. And then we have the bill as amended. Is there a motion to support the bill as amended? Tom, John? Okay, I think we're ready to go.
Representative Blumley,
Yes?
Representative Dickinson,
Yes.
Representative Feltus,
Yes.
Representative Kaczynski,
Yes.
Representative Roche,
Yes.
Representative Nigro,
Yes.
Squirrel, yes, Representative Stevens. Yes. Representative Yakavoni,
Yes.
Representative Shaw.
Yes.
10-0-1.
Thank you all. This may be our last bill by any, I'm
Forever.
not sure. Tom is the reporter. Maybe the last bill, and we ended on a unanimous vote.
There you
go.
Do it in this committee. I'm very proud of all of us. We don't always agree, but we get along great and we often do agree. It's nice to see it. So if there's any other bills that are coming by or that have to
I
do a
think
drive-in.
we're gonna get the sister state. I think.
Oh.
Marcotte is trying to fix.
Fix it.
Trying to say.
Okay. We may not be done yet, so stay tuned.
I think if we looked at our seats and average, we probably agreed, but we're '90s.
I think so. I think so. And I think that's what people outside our little bubble need to understand is that there's so much more we have in common and we agree way more than we disagree.
We do. Yep.
And some things like the previous vote, we all have our reasons and they're not always the same reasons. So it isn't like everybody's in lockstep for everything.
Okay.
It's that we do a lot of work where it's good and we agree on things and that's pretty exciting. I think it's pretty amazing. I'm glad we're here and not in Washington. So anyway,
We should be.
it's really great.
My blood pressure would be too high.
They'd be charging